Today's Emerging Issues Forum is sponsored by Front Wave Credit Union.
Front Wave Credit Union fights for their members, those dedicated to country and community, family and friends, for banking, lending, saving, planning, dream big. They got you. They're Front Wave Credit Union, and they've been making financial dreams come true since 1952. Check them out at frontwavecu.com.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to jump in. I know there's going to be some others joining the call. Because we have the smaller group today, we do have a few minutes for around the room introductions. So we'll just, or around the screen introduction. So I'll just give everybody a quick moment to let us know who you are and who you represent. Let's start with Craig.
All right. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Scott. Good to be back, I guess, with you all. In case you aren't aware why I'm here, you may recall Risa has been the representative from the Water Authority attending Oceanside Chamber meetings. She unfortunately left the Water Authority to pursue another opportunity. So now you get me. So I'm happy to be with you all.
Welcome. Colleen. Colleen, you're muted.
I'm here.
We're just doing self-introductions.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Colleen O'Hara. I'm a local attorney.
All right. Thanks, Colleen. Hannah.
Hi, everyone. Hannah Gilbert, Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the Oceanside Chamber. Glad everybody could be here this morning.
Colonel.
Morning, Colonel Dan Whitley, Commanding Officer for Headquarters and Support Battalion, Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton.
Crystal.
Morning, everyone. Crystal Jabarev, Director of Community Outreach for Supervisor Jim Desmond.
All right. Gumaro.
Good morning, everybody. Gumaro Scarcega, Main Street Program Manager at Main Street Oceanside.
All right. Haley.
Good morning. I'm Haley Wansley with Intessa Communications Group and the chair of the board.
All right. Debbie.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie McCuley. I'm aide to Council Member Christopher Rodriguez.
Thanks, Debbie. John.
Good morning, everyone. John Osborne, Director of External Affairs for AT&T.
Bob.
Okay, now you got me.
Yep.
Everybody, Bob Botkin, Boys and Girls Club of Oceanside, past president.
All right, Matthew.
Good morning, everybody. Matthew Jennings, Director of Communications with Oceanside Unified School District.
All right, Chris Marsh.
Chris Marsh, District Director for State Senator Patricia Bates.
Thanks, Chris. Leslie.
Good morning, everyone. Leslie Gall, CEO of Visit Oceanside.
Michelle.
Good morning, Michelle Geller, Economic Development Manager for the City of Oceanside. And I at first I didn't see the grown-up in the background at Bob's, so I just hope he knew that there was a baby walking around.
And Kyle.
Good morning, Kyle Crowell with Congressman Mike Levin's office. Hi, everybody.
All right, great. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker for this morning. Jennings Imel is the Executive Director of the Western Regional Office of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Jennings has been with us many times over the year to give us his annual update from the U.S. Chamber on federal legislation and issues. So very pleased to welcome you with us, Jennings, and the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me as always. Good to see everybody on the call. Lots going on in DC, although not technically this week and next week as members are out, but still a lot of issues, obviously, kind of making their way down the pike. And then, of course, some big issues that have already come up this year, including the American Rescue Plan, which I'm sure a lot of folks on this call are interested in learning more about. So happy to cover some of that. I've got a slide deck that I'd like to share with you all. It's always good to kind of visualize these things as I talk about them. Just first and foremost, so it's good to kind of tee up the conversation, with a breakdown of what the numbers, of course, look like. And I'm sure just about everybody on this call is roughly aware, but of course, the 50-50 Senate, the House numbers there aren't exactly up to date because we've had some changes over the last couple of weeks. But kind of get the gist that the divide in the House is extremely narrow. It's one of the slimmest majorities that either party has enjoyed in a number of decades. So we have roughly divided government in Washington, D.C. with a split Senate right down the middle, and then a House really where Democrats can't afford to lose 4 or 5 votes on any bill that comes to the floor if they want to get it through. So what this really is going to require is extensive bipartisanship, quite frankly, if we're going to get things done. And at least hopefully that'll be the case. And that's obviously something that we'd like to see at the U.S. Chamber. But I think that that's going to be really critical over this year and next throughout this Congress in order to get legislation to the president's desk. And then just kind of interesting to look at the state side of things, just because I like to point this out because this is, of course, a census year, or last year was a census year. This year, at some point, they'll redraw the lines. I know that there are some delays on that front as well. Hopefully, we'll get those resolved. But we'll have new lines going into 2022, not only in the state of California, but of course, nationwide. Of course, in California, we have our own kind of independent redistricting commission, but a lot of states don't have that and require the state legislatures to redraw the lines. And that's why I wanted to highlight this, because Republicans actually had a very good night in state legislatures across the board in November. They picked up 2 houses, actually both being in the state of New Hampshire. There was kind of a broad attempt by Democrats to overturn state legislatures in places like Texas and Arizona that ultimately didn't pan out. But Republicans did pretty well there. They picked up a governorship in the state of Montana. So they're going to be pretty well positioned this year to redraw their legislative districts. And that could kind of have broad implications for what the House is going to look like for, quite frankly, the next decade. And it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on some states. California expected to lose at least 1 seat. Arizona expected to gain 1 seat. Texas expected to gain 3 seats. Florida, 2 seats. A lot of the kind of the states across the South, Colorado, though included in the Mountain West, expected to gain a seat. But a lot of these states in the Sun Belt expected to gain 1 or 2 seats, with Texas gaining the most. And then, of course, we kind of continue to see the trend of states in the Northeast losing seats as they lose population as well. So just kind of an interesting trend to keep an eye out for the next decade, because that is going to have kind of big implications, not only in the states, but of course in the House as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. But really kind of going back to the point of the split government essentially that we have, even though on paper it looks like it's united Democrat control. And sometimes it feels like that, but sometimes not always. I think that what this is really going to necessitate is bipartisanship, and that kind of aligns perfectly with what the U.S. Chamber has been focused on for the last several years in particular, where we've stressed bipartisanship. We've tried to incentivize bipartisanship. We changed our scorecard a couple of years ago to include 2 new components. One component was legislative leadership. The other one is bipartisanship. So we're not just looking at the votes that are coming to the House or Senate floors and grading members of Congress based off of those votes. We're also looking at these other things, such as, how many bills are members co-sponsoring that had authors from the other party and things like that, just as a way to incentivize kind of coming together, working together in a bipartisan way. We also launched this year our Common Ground series, where we bring together 1 Republican, 1 Democrat to talk about an issue of importance. We actually had our first Common Ground series event last month, focused on infrastructure. And then earlier this week, we did one focused on immigration. So big issues that are going to require bipartisan buy-in. We're trying to figure out ways we can bring both parties together to have those conversations and talk about how they're working with one another, so we can kind of get past some of the acrimony that we all hear pretty regularly on cable news, which is nice. I think just in general, the kind of center of gravity in the House and Senate is really going to be with these folks that are in the middle. You look at the Problem Solvers Caucus, they've expanded their ranks in the aftermath of the election. I think they're up to 28 Republicans, 28 Democrats. It's a pretty large contingent now in the House. And these are folks that are bipartisan. They get together regularly. They work on these issues. I think, you know, they're going to play really an integral role in determining what ultimately gets out of the House and what doesn't. They were the group that, quite frankly, played a big role in the pandemic bill at the end of last year, the economic aid bill that passed in December. This was before the American Rescue Plan. That didn't, you know, the whole reason why that came together was because the Problem Solvers Caucus in particular really led on driving that effort. So I think we're going to kind of see the same thing on the Senate side. We've got kind of what was then a new gang of 8 last year of kind of moderate, you know, Republicans and Democrats that work well together. Now it's kind of the G20. This is a group of 20 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans in the Senate that are working on an infrastructure package, for example. You know, I think that those folks are going to play obviously a key role in what comes out of the Senate. So we're really enhancing our relationships with these folks across the board. And we look forward to hopefully getting some bipartisan wins on the board in 2021. Now, kind of going to some of the policy issues that I know a lot of you are kind of tracking or kind of concerned about. The American Rescue Plan, of course, is the big one that passed just a couple of weeks ago, the $1.9 trillion package in response to the pandemic. I don't think I need to go over all of the numbers. I think most of the folks that are on this call have heard quite a bit about the various provisions and kind of what's in there for, you know, as far as the stimulus payments are concerned, or state and local government payments of $350 billion in total, the UI expansion, that $300 per week supplemental through September. Obviously, we're happy from the business community standpoint to see the amount of money dedicated to vaccines, vaccine development, further distribution, things like that. Obviously, we need to turbocharge that in order to get our economy up and running again. So that's been a great thing. There was some small business provisions in here as well, which I'll talk about. But, you know, as far as you all are concerned locally, of course, there's a lot of money coming down the pipeline. We've got to the state of California about $26 billion. Just to the state government, $15 billion or so to local governments here in California, including, you know, $647 million roughly to the county of San Diego, and then $33 million to the city of Oceanside. These are pretty big numbers. And so these are going to start kind of filling coffers pretty soon, and will allow local governments to be able to use that money to respond to the pandemic, and then hopefully also to further assist small businesses in need. One of the great programs that was in this, and again, I don't have to spend a whole lot of time. Of course, I'm happy to take questions if there are any. But the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is a $28.6 billion grant program that's going to be administered by the SBA. That was really the marquee program that was included in this. They're hoping to get this up and running sometime in the beginning, hopefully, of April. Some of you may have heard that the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant is going to launch officially on April 8th. So, you know, please be on the lookout for that. We already have a good amount of information, such as, you know, frequently asked questions, kind of a document, a kind of a checklist, you know, beforehand, before applying for that Shuttered Venue grant that you can find on the SBA's website. Hopefully we'll see something like that. We should within the next couple of days on this Restaurant Revitalization Fund. But I think, you know, if you are a restaurant owner, if you know a restaurant owner, obviously, where this makes sense, and for most of them, I think this is going to be a great opportunity. You know, please have them check this out. This is a program that's designed to essentially replace the lost revenue in 2020. And you can get a maximum as a restaurant owner of up to $5 million. If you're a restaurant group, you can get a maximum of up to $10 million. The pre-application checklist for this is the same as for the Shuttered Venue Operating Grant, because they're both being administered by the SBA. We're advising businesses to go ahead and get their DUNS number. That's if you just kind of Google Dun & Bradstreet, you know, you'll be able to get a DUNS number. That's kind of required in order to make yourself known to the federal government and eligible for these kind of grant programs. Once you get your DUNS number, which takes a couple of days, then you'll be able to go to sam.gov, which is the System of Award Management, and be able to apply for a SAM number. So we're just kind of encouraging folks to go ahead and do that. I think this is going to be a good program. Other important changes that were included in the rescue plan have to do with the PPP and shutter venue grant. Now businesses are eligible to apply for both. The employee retention tax credit was also expanded so that it's not just applicable for the first 2 quarters of 2021, but for all 4 quarters of 2021, which means that an employer could get up to $28,000 per employee in tax credits. It's a big deal. And then tax credits for sick leave as well. That was previously mandated under, if you all recall, the Families First bill. Those tax credits for businesses that continue to provide sick leave related to COVID and things like that, that's also been extended to September. So some good opportunities for businesses to really kind of take advantage of and take a look at. Of course, we have on our website our various guides, U.S. Chamber guides on all of these things, on PPP and how to navigate that. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. Feel free to check out our website, uschamber.com/coronavirus, or just reach out to me personally if you all have any information or need anything else. We're always happy to help. Moving on to some other more traditional issues, now hopefully that we've gotten the pandemic a little bit behind us as far as kind of Congress is concerned. Infrastructure and immigration reform are going to continue to be 2 of our top priorities for 2021. Of course, the Biden administration released yesterday the proposal, their infrastructure proposal, a little over $2 trillion in spending. It's big, it spends money in a lot of different places, but I think, the key for us, and I included kind of a part of our statement that we released yesterday, is that, funding this with increased taxes, particularly rolling back the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%, moving back to a territorial system of taxation where we're taxing overseas profits, kind of essentially rolling back a lot of the provisions that were in the tax bill back in 2017, and increasing taxes on businesses is not the way to go. We don't think that that's appropriate for funding infrastructure. We continue to very much be in support of a user fee model to support infrastructure, whereby the folks that use the infrastructure ultimately pay for it, whether that's through the gas tax or an increase to the federal gas tax or a vehicle miles traveled system. We think that those are much better systems that are self-sustaining in the long term, rather than kind of a one-time grab of tax money by increasing rates on businesses that, quite frankly, this is probably not the time to be doing that sort of thing. So on infrastructure, though, we're still hopeful that we can get a bipartisan deal done. We think that there's Republicans and Democrats that want to do that. So we're going to continue to work with members to get that done by this summer. On immigration reform, the same thing. We were really happy that the House moved a couple of important bills a few weeks ago on immigration, dealing with Dreamers and the farm workforce system. And hopefully we can build upon that momentum and get something done on immigration. As far as other issues are concerned for this year, there's, as I mentioned, the American Rescue Plan, the PPP. Well, I didn't mention the PPP extension, but that was also passed, thankfully. And thank you to Congressman Levin, of course, for his support on that and getting that done last week. So the big COVID plan was passed, the PPP extension was passed, which means that the application has been extended through May 31st, which is great for businesses. A number of other bills have already passed the House. Those are the ones with the check marks that are in white. So HR 1 is the big election bill. The HR 8 is gun checks, background checks. Equality Act, the PRO Act, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, Dream and Promise, and the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Those are the 2 immigration bills I mentioned. And then we've got a number of other bills here that are likely to come up pretty soon when the House goes back. The FAIR Act is an anti-arbitration bill. Raise the wage is the $15 an hour minimum wage. Of course, all of you are pretty familiar with Medicare for All, infrastructure, tax increases that could go along with that. Bottom line is, on a lot of these things, while some of these bills, of course, the U.S. Chamber we've supported, a lot of these bills are pretty progressive. Obviously, it's part of a pretty broad progressive agenda, and are not particularly good for the business community. Some are exceptionally harmful to the business community, like the PRO Act, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act in particular, which I'm happy to talk more about if there's questions on that. But I think the bottom line is that the House has really kind of been frantically passing a lot of these bills And they're going to move on some of these ones that don't have a check mark yet. They're going to move on those shortly. And the overarching strategy here is to pass as many as possible, get them to pile up on the Senate's doorstep, and intensify the pressure on a number of Senate Democrats to ultimately make changes, whether that's eliminate, probably not, but some sort of reform to the filibuster system or to cloture rules in the Senate, and bring the threshold for cloture from 60 votes down to a simple majority in order to get some of these bills passed. I think that that's the kind of overarching strategy here that's being implemented. And so that's why you're seeing a lot more talk about the filibuster, about cloture rules in the Senate. And I think that this is going to be one of our top priorities, aside from, of course, on the issue side, looking at infrastructure and immigration, but just in a governance kind of perspective. Maintaining the filibuster, maintaining the cloture threshold at 60 is an absolute must for the business community. It's a priority for the business community, and we've got to work with those Senate Democrats that are being targeted to make changes. We got to work with them to make sure that we hold the line on keeping Rule 22, which is the cloture rule, in place. So on the cloture, on kind of just for some background information, this is an incredibly important parliamentary tool that enables the Senate to function. Filibusters go back for over 150 years. The cloture rule goes back to 1917. It used to be, of course, to file and invoke cloture, which means that you would move forward on a bill, bring it up and debate on the bill, bring it up for a vote. It used to require 2/3 of the Senate, which was 67 votes. That was brought down in 1975 to 60 votes and allowed for dual tracking, which allows the Senate to, even if a bill is being filibustered and can't go forward, the Senate can move on to other pressing matters, which helps to kind of make the body a little bit more efficient. Of course, there have been changes that have been made to cloture, such as in 2013 under Harry Reid, when we changed it from 60 votes to a simple majority for executive and lower court judicial nominees. And then in 2017 with Mitch McConnell, when we changed it to a simple majority for the Supreme Court nominees. And so that's kind of the trajectory where we've been going, is to kind of bring down that number from 60 to a simple majority. And hopefully we won't do that. But that's kind of where things are heading. That's why it's being discussed quite a bit right now. And then if you look at kind of the history of cloture, this is something that has been used, and this is part of why it's a big deal now. It's been used a lot over the last several years in particular. We've seen a lot more filibustering from both parties on really big bills. So this is used kind of across the board. Republicans and Democrats kind of use it equally, whoever's in the minority. We saw a record number last year in the last session where Democrats utilized that tool quite a bit. And so that's kind of made necessary, of course, filing and invoking cloture on this, we're talking about 400, 500, 600 times or so over the last couple of years. So just, to end on the cloture issue, I just wanted to stress the fact that this is an important kind of parliamentary tool that the Senate has in order to get things done in an efficient manner in some respects, right, by having the dual tracking system, but also, I think most importantly, in order to get minority consultation and to get minority buy-in. And it really requires the majority party, whoever it is, Republicans or Democrats, to reach across the aisle and work with folks on the other side to get their buy-in on legislation. And this is incredibly important in that it ultimately produces durable legislation, bills that are going to stand the test of time. And we've seen time and time again when Congress doesn't do that, when the Senate doesn't do that, and they pass bills without minority buy-in, whether that's when they have a 60-vote majority, such as when, under Obama with the ACA and Dodd-Frank, or whether it's through reconciliation. And that's the tool whereby they can kind of circumvent the 60-vote threshold and just get a majority vote. We saw that with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, and then just even most recently with the American Rescue Plan. Those bills are kind of lightning rods. Of course, we all know Obamacare, Dodd-Frank was a lightning rod for Republicans. The tax cuts bill from 2017, very much a lightning rod issue that Democrats continue to talk about. The American Rescue Plan, while not maybe quite to that level yet, certainly in Republican circles, a lot of folks not happy about some of the provisions that are in there. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they, the minority party just felt like they were shut out of the whole process. And we don't want to see that. And it's a concern for the business community for a number of reasons. First, in that, of course, business has often been in the crosshairs on some of these pieces of legislation. Look at ACA or Dodd-Frank, for example, very problematic for sectors of the business community. And then also, just kind of having the uncertainty, right, of having the Senate, as it flips from Republican control to Democrat control, to be able to pass wildly different agendas that could either be great for the business community for a couple of years, or, if the control of the Senate changes and something passes with a simple majority, we could see potentially very bad legislation for the business community. And that kind of pendulum swing, that abrupt pendulum swing back and forth, is typically not a good thing for the business community. So just wanted to stress the filibuster issue, because that is going to be a big thing over the next couple of weeks and months. And we're going to be very active on it, the U.S. Chamber. And I think it's going to be important for the whole business community to reach out to folks like Senator Feinstein in particular, who is more of an institutionalist in the Senate, but has been open to changes in the filibuster. We really need to be proactive in reaching out to her office and kind of stressing that filibuster is a good thing. Keeping the cloture rules is a good thing for the business community, and making that case forcefully. So that's it. I know I covered a lot here on the filibuster and some of these other issues, but happy to take any questions if there are any, and if we have time, of course.
Thank you, Jennings. We certainly do have time for questions. So if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. I will start off with a question though. For the states that are going to gain or lose congressional seats, when would that take place?
So, as far as the timing is concerned on the, when we would know, I'm not exactly sure. I think we should know, well, hopefully by the fall or by the end of this year. The lines will have to be drawn in advance of next year's elections, obviously. But I know that there have been some delays, as far as there have been a couple of lawsuits that have been filed. There are some issues kind of state by state. I'm just thinking of states like Ohio, for example, that are having some issues with this. So I think that we could kind of see a delay, but hopefully sometime not too in the far distant future. So hopefully sometime this fall, we'll be able to get a better idea of that.
Okay. I have one or two other questions, but I want to give anyone else an opportunity to jump in.
I have a question on the restaurant front for the aid that's going in. Does that also apply to like the breweries and wineries that serve food, or okay?
Yeah.
But they have to serve food or not?
No.
Okay.
No, breweries, wineries, brew pubs, all of those are included.
It actually also includes catering businesses. Yeah. And we, I will share that we had a meeting last Friday with Congressman Levin and the chambers in his district, and we each brought a few restaurants to the table. And one of the concerns that was expressed by the restaurants was that it was burdensome to go through the process of the DUNS and the SAMS accounts. And actually what we just learned yesterday, because we were in the process of trying to schedule training on that with the Small Business Development Center. And then we learned yesterday that those requirements have been dropped. So they no longer have to apply for a DUNS or SAMS. So we will give Kyle and Congressman Levin's staff complete credit for making that happen.
Good. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We just learned that from the Independent Restaurant Coalition yesterday.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, I will throw out another one then. So I know the PPP has been extended, the application period, until I think the end of May. Is there any talk about additional funds after that, or is this pretty much the end of the road for PPP?
That's a good question. I'm not so sure. There were some additional funds that were thrown in the American Rescue Plan as well. But I haven't checked the numbers in like a week or two. I think the last I saw, the program still had over $100 billion in it. So, while it's been tremendously helpful and obviously very popular for businesses. There's still a good amount of money left in that program. So I haven't heard any concerns about the money drying up, and especially as kind of we're seeing businesses kind of reopen and life get somewhat back to normal in places across the country. Hopefully that'll continue. I haven't heard anything about increasing funding or extending the deadline. Quite frankly, though, we at the U.S. Chamber called for the deadline to be extended through the end of the year. So that may be something that Congress looks at if there's still more money, in the program, and we get to May 31st, and there are still businesses in need. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to extend that further out. But on the money side, I haven't heard any discussions there.
All right, thank you. All right, last chance for questions. All right, so with that, Jennings, thank you so much for spending time with us. We know that next year's update will be in person here in the Chamber conference room, but thanks for accommodating us through Zoom today. We appreciate having you here.
Well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it as always.
All right.
Scott.
Oh, yeah.
I just got a text message from somebody who works in HHSA at the county, and they said that they're releasing 900 appointments right now. So if anyone has been looking for an appointment, there should be some. I know I don't want to take away from emerging issues, but if you've been looking for an appointment, I would go look right now.
Thank you, Haley. No, that's actually a very important update. I appreciate that. So with that, we're going to move on to our legislative reports, and we'll start with Kyle Crahill Frolander from Congressman Mike Levin's office.
Yeah, thanks. Good to see everybody again. Jennings really covered a lot of what I would be discussing here to you all. He did a great, really fantastic job, particularly on the American Rescue Plan's helps for small businesses, the restaurants, Paycheck Protection Program. And like Scott mentioned, we also had an event just last Friday on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So if you or any restaurant owners have questions about that, I think the chambers are going to be a great resource, but our office is also here. Where we are looking forward to another event on April 9th, where we're partnering with Jennings and the U.S. Chamber and our local chambers. And this is for all small businesses, so a much broader event that the U.S. Chamber is going to be doing a lot of the presentation on for the small business relief programs, some of which were just covered in pretty good depth. So I encourage you all to join us for that one. That's going to be on April 9th at 10 a.m. I'll share the link for the Zoom in the chat, and that will be something where you can ask questions and you can hear more from Jennings on that. But I also want to, of course, mention some things that the Congressman specifically is working on. Congressman Levin was recently named as one of the most effective freshman lawmakers during the 116th term in Congress, right? So that was his first term in Congress. They put out a ranking, and he was named one of the most effective in terms of getting bills done on a bipartisan basis. Just as a recap there, he worked with members of both parties to introduce more than 50 pieces of legislation during that first term in Congress. And 18 of those bills and amendments, sometimes they're included as amendments, his bill becomes an amendment, passed the House. And then out of those, 14 of those bipartisan bills were actually signed into law, either as standalone as part of broader legislation. So just trying to get things done, I think kind of like Jennings was hitting on, trying to move towards bipartisanship here so we can get good work done. Now, during this recent term that just started this year, Congressman Levin's been introducing more bills, similar themes that you've heard me talk about before, making sure to help our veterans, but of course also some things that we're having to deal with now, which is preventing future pandemics. So just two of those bills on March 11th, he reintroduced, this was a bill from last Congress that didn't make it, a bipartisan bill to provide benefit parity under the GI Bill for National Guard and Reserve Service members who are in situations that are similar to folks in the active duty. So folks, there have been, the National Guard and the Reserves have been really called up to do a lot more than was traditionally their role in terms of disaster response and being deployed. And so Congressman Levin and his fellow members who co-sponsored this think that they should be also given the same GI Bill benefits if they're in those dangerous situations. And then on March 18th, Congressman Levin introduced another bipartisan bill. This one, like I said, will help prevent future pandemics. It directs the Department of Health and Human Services to enter into agreements with foreign countries to develop and commercialize new antimicrobial drugs to prevent superbugs. So, the ones that eventually become resistant to normal methods of antimicrobials. So this would be working together with others to make sure that those are available everywhere, so we don't have something like this where, a pandemic can spread from other countries. So working together to get things done. As always, I appreciate being here. If you have any questions for me, like I said, I'll drop that link in the chat for the event on April 9th. So I'll pass it right on back to you there, Scott. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate your time. Next, Chris March from Senator Pat Bates' office.
Sorry for the delay. I had to unmute myself here. Good morning, everyone. That was a great update from the chamber, so thank you for organizing that. I really appreciate that insightful, very insightful briefing. First off, I wanted to mention that the Senate has unanimously approved one of Senator Bates' bills on the way to the Assembly now. It's SB 434, called Brandon's Law. This bill will prohibit an operator of a rehabilitation treatment facility from providing any form of false advertising or marketing services. So this is one of Senator Bates' passion projects. Every year in the Senate, she has attempted to rein in the more unscrupulous entities in California who have been offering rehabilitation for some of our most vulnerable citizens, those addicted to drugs and alcohol, who have been taken advantage of by these rehab facilities that have been offering false claims false claims in helping people. So very happy about that. We'll see how the bill does in the Assembly, but obviously it's been carried very strongly through the Senate, which gives us hope that it can pass through the Assembly and then eventually be signed by the governor. In addition to that, I wanted to point out another past project of Senator Bates, which is fentanyl. Every year in the Senate, she has offered bills to help combat this scourge in our society. Her bill, Senate Bill 75, will look to add proper penalty enhancements for the possession, sale, or distribution of fentanyl. As you all know, this has affected every one of us in California and across the nation as we have tried to combat the opioid addiction. So this bill right now is awaiting a hearing in the Public Safety Committee. We're working very hard to gain bipartisan support for this bill, and it does have bipartisan members on both sides of the chamber that are both sides of the legislature that are co-authors of the bill. So I will update you next month how this bill is going, but we're really hopeful that we can get this one across the finish line as well. And then I'd also like to point out there's been additional grants to Orange and San Diego County from the Housing Community Development. So that is exciting. San Diego County alone will get $480,000 for a transitional housing program. And then additionally, the city of Vista will get an additional $408,000 for permanent local housing allocation. And then there's a bunch of other grants that are being distributed across both counties that will help in relocating or finding permanent housing for homeless, which is an issue that I know all of us deeply, deeply care about, and an issue that has only gotten worse with the pandemic. So if anybody has any questions on that, please let me know. That is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate the update. Crystal, could you give us an update from Supervisor Desmond's office?
Good morning, everyone. A lot going on at the county as usual. Boss is keeping us busy. Kind of the big topic right now is the unaccompanied minors that are down at the convention area. And right now we have, I think, more than 80 of them have tested positive for COVID. So they're being isolated and away from the other group, but there's constant testing going on down there. We have county nurses on site kind of monitoring conditions. We do have hotel rooms available if people need to be moved from isolation areas at the convention center. Also, they are beginning today the in-person learning from San Diego Unified. So if anyone has any questions about kind of what's happening down at the convention center, you can shoot me off a message and I'll respond to that. We also have increased vaccine eligibility taking place, and thankfully we have the infrastructure in place to administer vaccines, thanks in part to a lot of our medical providers like TriCity Hospital. The problem is getting the vaccines. So the way it works for the county and for probably everyone else is you put in your orders. I think twice a week we put in orders for vaccines. put in our request of what our need is, and until they show up, we don't know how many we're getting. So that's why the appointments aren't scheduled super far in advance, and that's why we kind of don't know how many we can release. And as Haley said, you know, a new batch of appointments was released today, which is really great, but if you're not a person who's constantly monitoring that, it makes it a little tough to get the vaccines. So if anyone needs assistance, if they're, especially some of our elderly population who is not very tech savvy and understands how to either use the bots on Twitter to find an appointment, they can reach out to our office or call 211. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Also, we're anticipating, we've kind of expected it before now, but guidance on special events, which I know the chamber has been excited to hear, and anyone who, you know, our weddings or conferences, any of that kind of stuff, have had absolutely no guidance of when they can begin even a small type of event. So we're anticipating the state of California issuing that guidance, and that is good news because once the guidance comes out, then it's typically added to one of the tiers. And since we're looking at moving into orange very quickly, and hopefully special events will be added somewhere in there. So that's good news for a lot of our people. And then if anyone has questions about what's included in orange or specific questions about a specific business, they can reach out to our office as well. And then we have a board meeting next week, so we'll be getting ready. The board agenda comes out today, so we'll see how many items are on there and what will be the new issues, the soup du jour, as I call it. So if anyone needs help, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Crystal. We appreciate the update. Debbie, do you have anything that you'd like to share from Councilmember Rodriguez's office?
Yes, I do. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a report on behalf of Councilmember Rodriguez. After becoming aware of the homeless encampment on Oceanside Boulevard, Councilmember Rodriguez decided to place an item on the March 10th council agenda. The item read, request by Council members Rodriguez and Jensen to discuss Oceanside's growing homeless crisis and direction to staff to take emergency action to bring relief to impacted communities. And the result of this council item was a renewed commitment by staff to make Oceanside's homeless issue a top priority. A weekly staff report has been initiated to keep council updated on the city's progress. And I'd like to share just a few excerpts from the latest report that was provided by Assistant City Manager Michael Gossman. Addressing homelessness remains the city's top priority and the city is aggressively pursuing several strategies to get the situation under control. This includes opening a transitional homeless shelter with wraparound day services to obtain stability and transition people into permanent housing. Staff is collecting proposals now and anticipates the selection of a shelter operator in June of 2021. The hotel voucher program, one of the highest priorities right now, is launching that program that can be offered to anyone experiencing homelessness. This program will include room and board, case management, on-site security, and participants will be required to follow the rules. They anticipate having this program in place by April 8th, and it will allow them to enforce the camping ordinance and still comply with the Boise decision. Amendments to the camping ordinance are coming to council on April 7th. The purpose of this ordinance is to more closely align our prohibition on camping with the Boise decision. It bans camping in public as defined, but it excludes from that definition sleeping in public without tents or camping paraphernalia between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., except in open space designated areas where sleeping in public is always prohibited. This change, along with the aforementioned voucher program, will give us the tools to deal with the encampment on Oceanside Boulevard. They have revised the parking ordinance to prohibit RVs and other large vehicles from parking in certain areas, and this item is scheduled for the April 21st council meeting. The police department has 2 homeless outreach teams that travel with social workers to provide assistance to people experiencing homelessness. They visit the encampment on Oceanside Boulevard on a very regular basis. So that's the report for what's going on with the homeless issue. At the March 24th council meeting, Councilmember Rodriguez placed another item asking council to adopt an anti-tax resolution and send a letter to Sandag expressing opposition to any new taxes or tax increases. And the council voted 4-1 to adopt the resolution. And this letter was sent yesterday to Sandag. Dear Sandag Board of Directors, the Oceanside City Council writes to express strong opposition to any new taxes or tax increases to fund its 5 big moves initiatives or any other program and project. The COVID-19 pandemic has had significant and negative impacts on Oceanside's economy and small businesses, and working families continue to struggle with making ends meet. Any new tax would only exacerbate these impacts. Moreover, sales tax is considered one of the most regressive taxes that disproportionately impacts those who make the least. State and local government should always look internally to improve efficiencies before considering any new tax increase. On March 24, 2021, the Oceanside City Council, on a 4-1 vote, Mayor Sanchez voting no, adopted an anti-tax resolution to communicate its opposition to any tax increases and its commitment to taxpayers that the council will instead rely on cost efficiency reforms to balance the city budget. The full text of that resolution is attached herewith. It was signed by council members Keim, Jensen, Rodriguez, and Weiss. I encourage you to visit Councilmember Rodriguez's Facebook page. That's Christopher Rodriguez, Oceanside City Council District 2, for regular updates regarding his commitment and ongoing efforts to address the homeless crisis and other issues related to our community. As shared previously, April's council meeting items for consideration will include a hotel motel voucher program, an amendment to the camping ordinance, and a revision of the RV parking ordinance. Councilmember Rodriguez strongly encourages you to attend these meetings to let your voice be heard, particularly as it relates to your businesses. And that concludes my report. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Debbie. We appreciate that. And just a real quick follow-up on that. The Chamber has been working very closely with Main Street and Visit Oceanside on this issue, on the homelessness issue, and to engage the business community and encourage people to be at the April 7th meeting to speak out on this. And I know a lot of emails have already gone out to the council members from our business community. So yes, we appreciate the strong engagement from our businesses. With that, I'm going to just throw it open to anyone that has an update, a quick update from their organization. Feel free to unmute yourself and jump in.
Hey, Scott, this is Chris Marsh. I have one last thing that I forgot to mention. Do you mind if I jump back onto my part of the agenda?
Please do.
I buried the lead. I foolishly was saving the best for last, and then I forgot to get to it. I wanted to point out that next week at Oceanside City Council's regular scheduled council meeting, Senator Bates will be in attendance to award Oceanside's own Valley Gilly as her recipient of the Senate District 36 Woman of the Year. So that's very exciting. Miss Gilly is an amazing person, and not just the city of Oceanside, but across the county for her work feeding the hungry. So we're very excited about that. That will be a Zoom city council meeting, obviously, but I wanted to make sure everyone knows that. And also, I wanted to point out that it was the Oceanside Chamber who made the nomination of Miss Gilly, and she wound up winning. So that is the actual end of my report, but very exciting, and congratulations to Miss Gilly for all of her efforts in the community.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate that. Hey, we do have a question in the chat for Crystal. Does the new guidance include endurance sports?
We are not sure if it's going to include endurance sports or not. We're hoping that it will be included under the special events. We've been arguing the fact that endurance sports should be given the same guidance that professional sports. And we've worked with the endurance sports, and Leslie Gall has been coordinating that. So we're hopeful. We have not seen the guidance yet. So hopeful that it comes out this week. And if not, we will keep pushing for that.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to jump in with a quick update from their organizations?
Hey, Scott, it's Aaron from TriCity.
Yes.
Hey, just wanted to give a quick update on a couple of things. We continue to vaccinate as many people as we can, but to Crystal's point and others who have mentioned it, you're somewhat limited by the amount of vaccine that you actually get. We've been requesting as much as we possibly can, but we're doing a little over 1,000 a week based on the number of vaccines that we're getting. But we've vaccinated nearly 20,000 people now at the hospital at TriCity Medical Center. And if you looked online, it gets amazing reviews. So it's a great process, fairly quick in and out, although as they've opened up the criteria, the line has gotten slightly longer. So instead of only 22 minutes, it might take you 30 minutes to get through the whole process now. But that's still pretty good. We also have been working on a lot of projects in the city of Oceanside. We continue through our coastal commitment, which is our the name of our outreach initiative, which has nearly 60 partners now. We continue to focus on things like homelessness. So we're providing resources to homeless service providers who are serving the broader North County area, including Oceanside. We're also working very closely with the chamber at Oceanside and other chambers in San Diego North EDC and the school districts to create a new program called SoCal, which is Student Opportunities for Career Awareness and Learning, which will have a website with online tours or virtual tours of different departments at our hospital and at other businesses and other industries. So that'll be open hopefully in the coming months. We're actually finishing filming today of the TriCity tours at the hospital. But that'll not only have tours, so young people or even people who are looking to change careers can kind of explore different opportunities within healthcare, within manufacturing, hotel and leisure, and you name it, all kinds of different industries. But then it'll also have links to career technical education about those jobs, income, expected income in those jobs, and then also where they can go to school locally to be trained for those jobs. So that's a big project. And then tonight we're going to the graduation ceremony for the Oceanside Youth Partnership, which is run by the Oceanside Police Department. We are a sponsor of that program, and I speak at that program on personal responsibility. That is a program created by the police department several years ago to engage at-risk youth, oftentimes young people who come from what have historically been known as kind of gang neighborhoods in Oceanside. And they teach them about personal responsibility, and the police officers mentor them in a non-law enforcement environment. So we're going to go to the graduation ceremony tonight for that. And thank you to Supervisor Desmond's office, Assembly Member Bernard Horvath's office, Senator Pat Bates's office, and also Congressman Levin's office for providing at the very last moment certificates of recognition for those students. I went to them at the very last moment and I asked them for a near miracle, and they all obliged. So I'm very appreciative of what they're doing. So thank you very much, everybody. And if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to call me, 760-889-3609, or they can call our vaccination clinic, 760-940-5544, for any questions related to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. That's great info. Colleen.
Yes, I chair the Measure X Oversight Committee for the City of Oceanside. That's the half-cent sales tax that voters approved 3 years ago. And since homelessness came up as an issue this morning, I wanted to let you know that we are using quite a bit of that money to fund a sobering center so that the police have somewhere to refer the homeless. We've also paid to increase the homeless outreach staff through the Oceanside Police Department and funding the hotel voucher programs. So Measure X funds are being put to good use. You may want to have a report on all of the Measure X funding at one of your meetings in the future.
That is a great idea, Colleen. Thank you. Any other updates before we wrap up?
This is Matthew Jennings, Oceanside Unified School District. I'm just here on behalf of Superintendent Dr. Vitale, who couldn't be with us this morning. And I just gonna let everybody know we're very excited to have all scholars, elementary and secondary, have access to hybrid in-person instruction as of this week. And we have a board meeting coming up next week, Tuesday evening, April 13th, where staff will present further reopening plans. We're excited about that. We're excited to have scholars back on campus.
All right. Thanks, Matthew. And Craig, I saw you raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Craig Balvin with the Water Authority. Just real quick, our long-term regional water planning document, the Urban Water Management Plan, which we are required to update every 5 years, was last updated in 2015. We have a draft document that's out for public review. Public comments on that are due May 6th. So just wanted to let you know about that. It shows a safe and reliable water supply, which we all know is absolutely critical for the business community to continue operating and to continue to offer jobs and opportunities for folks. We know that that is absolutely crucial for our regional economy. Happy to say that the long-term planning shows a safe, reliable water supply all the way out through 2045, even in dry years. And so, like I said, comments on that are due May 6th. The second item, have really good news to report. The Water Authority sent about $2.4 million to the city of Oceanside. This was part of $44.4 million being returned back to the San Diego region to the Water Authority. The Water Authority Board of Directors voted in February to return all of the money that it received from decades-long rate litigation. These are rates that are charged by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California up in Los Angeles, our water wholesaler. They had been charging illegal rates for years, and the courts decided that the Water Authority won on a number of issues. So we asked for some of these proceeds to be sent back, and they returned that money, returned some of that money. This is for rates between 2011 and 2014. There are additional years of rates that now will go through the court process. We were sort of on hold waiting to see what happens with the 2011 to 2014 rates. So now that we have that money back, we're going to pursue getting some of the additional money that was part of the illegal rates back and likely sent back to our member agencies. So City of Oceanside, being one of the Water Authority's member agencies, received a chunk of money back, $2.4 million, and that's in so that was sent to them. They will decide the city will decide how they choose to use that money. It must be used for water. That's really the only restriction. The Water Authority has no say how the member agencies use that money. Some are using it for rate stabilization. Some are using it to fund CIP projects. So, but that will be up to the individual member agencies to decide what to do with their portion of the proceeds. If anyone has any questions about either of these items, I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate the update. Anything else before we wrap up? Well, normally, I'd like to be able to tell you who next month's presenter is, but I'm working with our new police chief, Oceanside Police Chief Fred Armijo, and he will, looks like he'll either speak in May or June. He's just trying to work out his schedule, so I'm hoping he can do May, because it'd be great for all of you to get the opportunity to meet with him and to hear his vision for the Oceanside Police Department. So With that, I want to encourage everybody to save the chat before we close out. There's some good info in there. And I just want to thank everybody for their time today and hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you.